everyone, welcome back to another episode of Talking Tongue, the weekly quarantine show where I get to talk to my friends near and far. And this time, they're very far. Like, there is probably as far as they have been in, like, I don't know, like probably the furthest guest that we've had in a long, long time, all the way from the North Pole. We have Jesse the Bergen.
Hey, Tuong.
How's the North Pole treating you?
Oh, man, it is cold.
Santa been working you hard?
God, he's a real slave driver, but I love the work, so I don't complain.
Does he give you a bed to sleep in, Jesse? Or like, what's the deal? He seems he seems to put on that face that he's a really friendly guy, but like otherwise just an asshole.
You know, you told me going in to keep it light, but I'm going to keep it real. It's not so much a bed as it is like all of the stuffed animals that failed the grade to go out to kids. We just kind of spread them out on the concrete and we just try to lay over as many as possible.
Oh, God.
But again, you know, it makes the kids so happy. So
right.
I take it with a smile.
Right. That's so brave and honorable of you, Jesse. I'm so happy that you're here to join us. Of course, for the people who don't know, Jesse's not actually in the North Pole. And some people don't even know who Jesse is. And that's crazy. Jesse has, and we talked about the North Pole because I vividly remember Jesse being on ranked top 5 lists of stuff that don't matter. And we talked a lot about Santas. And he has some hot takes on Santas. And it's like, oh, he loves Christmas. Let's just say that.
I do. Guilty as charged.
Jesse, can you tell us a little bit about yourself for the people who don't know who you are and where you actually are?
Sure. Yeah. I'm actually in Antarctica, so the polar opposite. No, I'm in Winnipeg, Manitoba, which is it truly the farthest, or were you just saying that to play up the North Pole bit?
You know what? I was playing up the North Pole bit and a little bit truthful about it, but we definitely have had people from like BC. So
yeah,
like,
I was going to say, I'm like one province over. So that's shocking to me if I'm.
But we don't get to talk to people out there very often.
Oh, God. The prairies, forget it.
Yeah, exactly. So we've had nobody from Winnipeg, let's just say.
Man, there's some funny people here. But I guess I will represent all of Winnipeg right now.
Yeah, that's right.
It is minus 30 today. So like it is basically North Pole.
Is that true?
Yeah, it is.
Oh my God.
It is. And it's snowing. It looks beautiful, but it's so cold.
Oh my God.
That's the weather. About me though. I am an improviser. I've been improvising since like 2006. So like, I don't even know, 15 years. Good Lord.
So you're like a master at that now, right? Like you would consider yourself like up there, the Del Close of Winnipeg.
Yeah. I'm Del Close. I always think I'm the funniest person in the room and I'm going to die of a heroin overdose. I can't remember exactly what happened. I shouldn't slander Del Close. He's a legend.
Sure.
If I can get half as good as Del Close, I'll start to worry about what other people think of me.
I mean, like, you know, Del Close is famous for writing, you know, or being like what do you call it? Like a flagship improviser teacher, but I've never seen him improvise. So I don't believe he's that good. And
you probably won't since he is no longer with us.
That's right.
Yeah. He's sort of seen as a guru. He's sort of created what we think of improv now in the modern day. Mm-hmm. What else about me? Who other improvisers can I badmouth?
So you love to do improv.
Yes.
And you know what, we can go into this and maybe that'll generate some stuff. Like we like to start on a positive note on Talking Tongue.
Sure. Sorry, Del.
What keeps you happy during the pandemic?
Man. It's been a trip, but what am I into right now? We'll get into this later, but I've been playing a lot of D&D now that it's like one of the only group things you can do over video calls, and I'm loving it. And I'm having a great time.
Have you played D&D before this, Jesse? Or
yeah, I've played for about 3 years, so I'm relatively new to it. But it combines improv. It's like improv with stakes, where it's like, oh, my character can die, which just makes everything more heightened, and more interesting because it's just like. You care so much about it, even though it's all make believe.
Right. And there's that role play aspect of it where you get to like, do the improv thing where you get to like be a little goofy and put on some character voices and make choices that maybe you wouldn't do in real life, but you would as a character. That's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, you know, I might go attack a goblin village as myself, but probably not. That's something I can only live out in the game.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been doing that. I've been doing a lot of drawing. I'm a graphic designer, so I love to draw, and I've been learning how to animate.
Oh,
so I've
how's
been doing
that
little
going?
animations. Oh, it's so fun.
Yeah.
So I try to do one a week, little
Wow.
animations.
And how long would those animations be like? I know it takes a long time to animate, like 10 seconds even, but like, what's your goal?
Okay, it probably takes me an hour to 2 hours, and then they're a GIF, so it's like 8 seconds max.
But I like one of the Pod Cavern regular, Samantha Leggett. She is an animator as well, and she always tells me and sends me clips of her animating. And she's like, she does. Oh my god! Like it seems like she shows me a screenshot or a little Snapchat of like the little animation of like a bird flying, and she'll send this to me like over the course of like a week, and she's like, I'm done. And it's like, man, that was like 4 seconds. And it's like, I can't even, and I know she's good at her job. So it's like, my God, like I always think like as a kid, I take for granted how hard like making like a 20-minute show is, like a cartoon or something. That sounds like, woof.
Yeah, no, it's the labor to output ratio is wild. And it's kind of like working for Santa. You know, you work 364 days a year and then you get 1 day of payoff. So
yeah, that's
kind of like that.
So Santa's like Disney, essentially. If
yes.
Disney was alive.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, he's more DreamWorks.
Okay. Of course. Yeah.
He's always making the DreamWorks face. It's very unsettling.
Well, Jesse, I'm so happy that you're here to join me here today. But before we get into the movie of the week, which we're going to tease out for later, a movie that Jesse picked that I have a lot of thoughts about, but we'll get to that later. We're going to talk about the news of the week. And of course, every week we talk about pop culture headlines that I find from IGN.com. I've never seen these headlines before, so we're just going to see where, if anything interesting happened this week. And we're going to start with this one here. Soulja Boy. And I know you're a big Soulja Boy fan, Jesse.
Oh, man. I, as a pacifist,
right.
I have mixed feelings.
I forgot this was even a thing, but Soulja Boy is planning on releasing another video game console. And I use the word
Hell
another.
Yeah.
Back in 2018, he tried releasing a console and it just whiffed. And here he is again being like, I got another idea, another console. What are your thoughts on this?
Hell yeah. I'm going to look up his last console quickly. I want to remember what it was called.
It's called Soulja Game.
Oh, of course it is. I guess Game Boy was taken, so he couldn't use that part of his name.
Let's see here. They were he made the Soulja Game branded consoles and handhelds in 2018, but they were quickly discovered to just be off-brand emulators that could be found elsewhere.
You know what? I gotta respect him. Like getting into the game now when Sony and Microsoft and Nintendo have such a stranglehold on it.
Yeah.
That takes guts.
Do you have any attachment to Soulja Boy? Of course, like outside of his his video game credentials.
Sure. I mean, that's basically just what I know him from, to be honest, is playing Soldier Kong 64 on his console. I don't listen to a lot of Soulja Boy, I got to be honest, but
I can't name you except for the Soulja Boy song and the Soulja Boy dance. Like I don't know any other Soulja Boy thing.
I should look up a few songs and then I can see if I can make more game jokes about them. But anyways, I say good for him. You got to follow your dreams, and you know if his dream is making a rip-off emulator of his name in an incredibly crowded market. Thank goodness he's got the capital to throw at this.
I just mean like, does he still have the capital? Like I'm not sure. Like I'm not tapped into that world to begin with, but I have to imagine that Soulja Boy is no longer relevant in
Right.
the hip hop rap game. Like,
Let's be honest. He's Soulja Man now. It's been a while. He's older.
it's like when Lil Bow Wow just became Bow
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, exactly. And
Right.
then now he's like middle-aged Bow Wow. Rest, yeah, I think it's cool. I want to know how much these cost because I know you can get emulators for free. So I'm wondering
Yes.
how he's managing to convince people to drop cash on this.
It was just my nephew's birthday last weekend, and he is 8 years old now, and my sister like has been slowly introducing him to video games. If he was my kid, I would have done it much sooner because I love video games and I think they're wonderful for children if they're played or managed correctly, I guess, and they don't turn to zombies. But I think there's like something to like engaging their brain and problem solving and all these cool things that come with video games. Anyways, the whole point is like he's at the age where I'm like, no, he's getting a video game console. So I went to like Facebook Marketplace and Kijiji. I'm like, oh no, I'm not going to spend $100 on a 3DS. That's ridiculous. Like he's 8 years old. So I got him something instead called a Great Boy. Not a Game Boy.
Mean, that's gotta be better, right?
Yeah. And it's essentially this like thing that looks like a brick that is supposed to be a Game Boy from Amazon. It was like $40 and it has 381 games on it. And I'm like, how many of those games are actually good? But he loves it. So there's a market
when you gave it to him, you're like, here's a great boy for a great boy.
I should have done that. That would have been it's a missed opportunity. But since he's 8 years old, I'm pretty sure I could still nail it next time I go over there. I'm like, how do you enjoy that Great Boy?
There you go. Yeah. He'll be like, oh, now I get why you did this.
And then I'll say, well, if you like a Great Boy, just wait till I give you a Soulja Boy.
Exactly. Not the console. I am bringing Soulja Boy to your house.
Oh, that would be a little creepy.
Anyways, I'm sure one of the games Soulja Boy will release will be called Crash Bandicoot That. That's instead of Crank That. That joke didn't really work.
I get it. I totally get it.
Kiss me through the Bomberman. I don't know. I got nothing.
Okay.
Kiss me through the phone.
I can tell you're looking at Soulja Boy's songs right now, trying to craft some jokes.
It's tough, man. It's tough.
Hey, man, you haven't done live improv in a while. It's fine.
I can see why the console bombed. It's very hard to make a fun pun on his songs.
That's right. Speaking of gaming, we have another interesting kind of gaming news, and I didn't expect this to be a big gaming week, but there in Toronto, in Canada, for those of you who don't know where Toronto is.
Ooh, the capital of Ontario.
That's right. They plan on opening up an esports arena that is 7,000 seats. And I was looking at pictures of this thing. It looks pretty crazy. Like the concept art of this thing looks like it's from the future and looks very Tron-like, at least in the front of the building. Do you think, I mean, like, of course, in a post-COVID world, that you would go to like an esports arena and like see some of this stuff?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, first of all, what better time to open a giant esports arena than in the middle of a pandemic? I applaud them. It depends on the game, Tuong. Depends on the game.
Yeah.
What are we playing here?
Well, are you much of a gamer in general, Jesse?
I am. I don't play a lot of like esports games. Like that would be like League of Legends and like Overwatch and stuff. But if it was like, I don't know, Mario Kart esport tournament, I might be down for that. A Smash Bros tournament.
Yeah. That would be fun. What if it was like a Dungeons and Dragons, not a tournament, just like your podcast?
Let's do it in front of 7,000 people. I would not go see my own show. No.
I mean, that's a hard one to see live, I think, right?
Yeah.
Like you need a camera like right up on that dice.
Yeah, just watch a bunch of nerds like write down things on their character sheets and like, I mean, I'm sure it can be done, but we're
Yeah.
not there yet.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I'm not sure. I would be interested in seeing, like, I just think it's cool that I personally also don't watch many streamers these days in esports. There was a period where I was dabbling in it, but it was just like I like that that's a thing, but it's not like I'd rather just play the video games myself. I think that's where I'm
Yeah,
at.
totally.
Um, and enjoy
If
it in
you
my own pace.
were, yeah, if
Yeah.
you were going to compete in an esports tournament, what would be your game? What would you dominate at?
Oh, that's a good question. Um, I was gonna say Super Smash Brothers, but no, because people fucking stomp me in that game already. So let's say on the SNES, there's a game called Tetris Attack, and it is
Cool.
a fucking awesome game. It has Yoshi and all of his friends, and it's just like a match four game where you know what I mean? Like it's like
Yeah.
where you would match four of like a symbol, and if you match more than that, then it sends junk over to the other person's
Wicked.
board, I guess. And if they reach the top of the board, like, as time goes on, more junk piles up. And if they don't clear all the junk, then they lose. I'm very good at that game. So it's very niche.
I love it. That's great.
Yeah.
So you're saying that there's multiple levels and you send junk from one level to another. That's interesting. Maybe we'll touch on that later.
Oh, good setup.
Hey.
How about yourself, Jesse? Besides Dungeons and Dragons, what would you want to host or
Yeah. The game I was best at was Mario Kart Double Dash for GameCube.
Oh, so good.
And that's fun because you can do co-op. So you can be the guy on the back chucking shells, or you can be the person driving. And so that would be what I would compete in.
I like that.
Very old GameCube game.
I love that game. It's probably one of my favorite Mario Karts.
Honestly, I think we would go to the tournament and there would be like 8 people sitting in the 7,000 seats, and it would all be like relatives of me.
Yeah, it's a good job, Jesse. That's our
good job.
Oh,
watch out for that blue shell.
It's like I can't really dodge that blue shell.
I can't. Look, Mom, broken. I'm trying, but I am in first. These things happen.
That's just life, baby. Sometimes you get hit by a blue shell when you're ahead.
Why are you maining Wario? He's got good top speed, but bad acceleration.
Stop distracting me. Again, more video game like news, but this one's a little meld. It's based on a video game, but it seems like a real game show. And basically, Peacock, the streaming service, is making up a game show based on Frogger. And now you're nodding your head. Have you heard of this before?
No, but I'm picturing it in my mind already. It sounds incredibly dangerous.
Okay, I'm going to read you like a few sentences here. The Frogger game show will supersize the classic frog hopping, traffic dodging courses from the classic games and pit contestants against one another for a cash prize, obviously. The competition will feature 12 different obstacle courses dubbed crossings, forcing contestants to dodge treacherous traffic, leap over snapping gators, and hop over hungry hippos to conquer the course. Thoughts?
Yeah, man. I think this rocks. I think turning in my daily commute and monetizing it is really fun. I know I know a lot of people love crossing the street. I gotta see these hippos. Like, what are we talking here? Like animatronics?
They have to be animatronics, right? They can't like put real, like, hippos are scary animals.
Yeah, I think they are like the animal that kills the most people every year.
Yeah, like I don't want to fight a hippo. I die. Like their jaws are insane. No. Like you die right away.
Yeah, put me against like a moving van. Don't put me against a hippo.
Like I can't even remember. Like, I mean, I was really bad at Frogger to begin with. I got really frustrated with that game.
Oh, it was a terribly hard game.
Yeah, like maybe too hard for children. I don't know.
Yeah.
I guess it's a good lesson in looking both ways before you cross, like, but I did that and I still died. So
I know.
Yeah. But I remember the cars aspect of Frogger and the lily pads, but I don't remember hippos.
Yeah, that seems like they were like, we need to spice this up. We need to add something more exotic. I'm kind of disappointed in the monetary prize, to be honest, because I feel like it's against the spirit of the game. I think the only reward the contestants get is like they get to chill in a different pond than where they started.
That's the reward.
Yeah, it's like, hey, check out this new pond you're in.
In terms of if you were to compete in this, and it sounds like it's somewhat dangerous to a degree, of course, a little bit. How much money do you think is an acceptable amount to put yourself through to go through this?
Right. I man, crossing a street, dodging traffic, 20 grand, min.
20
but I'll
grand,
tell you
that's
something,
it, eh?
Tongue. I'll tell you something. I want to be a person. Again, we've talked about Mario Kart. I want to be one of the people driving the vehicles. I think that should be an option for other contestants. Once you pass, you get to be in a semi and you get to try to hit the other contestants.
Right, but you got to stay in your lane, of course.
Oh, for sure. But you can accelerate and decelerate. Yeah. Exactly.
I mean, I think that would be pretty annoying if you get to control it exactly. I guess you can't stop. That would be a rule.
Sure, you can only slow to like a crawl, but you have to keep moving forward.
Right. Otherwise, you just kind of wait for the perfect
you could
moment.
Just honestly create a pileup in the road and they could just never cross.
Yeah, exactly. You're a thinker. You know how to potentially run someone over.
Hey, just for money in a game situation.
Right, of course. In a game situation, in a live game show situation.
Yes. It's all sanctioned by the Geneva Conventions. It's fine.
Oh my God. Yeah. Let's go on to some maybe movie TV show news. And I guess, I think we might have talked about this in a previous episode of Talking Tongue, but I keep forgetting that this is even a service that's about to happen. That's Paramount Plus. I'm like, what? That's another one?
I just heard of this yesterday.
And I'm looking at the Frasier revival going to Paramount Plus. I'm not sure if we talked about that before. I think I might have mentioned it. Mission Impossible 7, A Quiet Place 2. They're all heading to Paramount Plus. And I think I talk about this every couple episodes of Talking Tongue where I'm just like, another streaming service. But I want to hear it from you today, Jesse. Like, what thoughts? Frasier? You like Frasier? Sounds like.
Man. I know also Paramount Plus is doing like a CGI Rugrats.
Yes,
which
that's
is bizarre to me because
the
extremely off-putting animation was part of its charm in the original.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
But man, I'm into Frasier. I think it should be dark Frasier though.
Yeah, what does that mean?
Like we need a Zack Snyder origin. No. We need an origin of Frasier Joker style, where he's just like, man, Niles, we live in a society, Niles.
Right, of course. And then Niles has like a damaged goods tattoo on his forehead.
Psychological trauma tattoo. And it would be like, Baby, I Hear the Blues a call in, but in minor key. Maybe sung by children. That's the theme song.
I hate that. I hate it. what you're describing right now, that sounds awful.
It sounds great.
I'm not on board. I don't need another.
Okay.
I don't need another streaming service. Laura loves Frasier. She loves that show. I think I was too young for it when I watched it.
Sure.
So I just immediately compared it to like at the time Friends, which is not that show. And I'm just like, well, where's the funny parts? And it's just dry humor, which I didn't know was a thing back then. So
right. Yeah. Frasier's like, it's every episode. It's like a farce. There's always a miscommunication, a misunderstanding.
Yep.
And he gets embarrassed. I agree. There's too many streaming services. Like canceling cable was supposed to save us money, but now it's like
it's back, baby.
Like friggin' who else has a streaming service? Like Timex Watches probably has like a streaming service. Like Captain Crunch probably has a streaming service.
Probably.
I'm sure I sound like a 50-year-old man complaining about this.
What's the deal? With
get off my lawn. Back in my day, it was just Netflix, and we had to mail. We got our movies in the mail.
Yeah, that was a thing. I never did that part, but
no,
Netflix
neither.
was so much different back then. The times, how things have changed, but come back to the way they once were.
I know, full circle.
Yeah, that's right. Did you ever watch Avatar: The Last Airbender? Not Blue People.
Oh, yeah, man, I love that show. Great show.
Now, did you know, and this is really exciting, this is probably like, I was really excited when I heard this news, is the Last Airbender creators essentially creating like an Avatar studio. And now it's just like, you know what? You love Airbender, you love Korra, you didn't love the M. Night Shyamalan movie. Well, guess what? We're gonna
M. Night's back, baby.
yeah, it's all run by M. Night. There's always twists, unnecessary twists. Yeah. But yeah, they're making
all part
own...
of the Shyamalan Plus streaming network.
Yeah, it's anyways, there's a dedicated studio, and they're creating a bunch of stories within the universe of Avatar: The Last Airbender, and they're going to start with a movie. And I think it's a great idea. I love that series. What's your take on this?
Yeah, initially when I heard about this, I was a little skeptical because I'm not a big reboot remake guy. I want to see more original storytelling.
Yeah.
And I want to see people take risks. But when I heard it was going to be like brand new characters, brand new storyline, I was like, hell yeah, man. It's a great world.
Yep.
There's great world building and there's great concepts. I'm all in, man. Let's see more of it.
Yeah, and I know like there is a live action Avatar as well, not M. Night, again, not M. Night, but there was supposed to be a live action version. I think that's still happening with the original creators, but then they dropped out. And now I'm curious. I'm like, well, that was the problem with the other live action ones. So maybe don't do it.
Yeah, again, it's just like, even with them at the helm, I was sort of like, I want to see their creative energies put towards something new. Like the Avatar show is so great as it is.
Yeah.
I just feel like any sort of remake is going to be worse. So let's see some new stuff.
I'm just curious, like why I feel the same way about The Last of Us TV show.
Oh yeah, I heard about that.
It's like, yeah, it's the same. It's Neil Druckmann. He's helming it. He's the creator of the game. And it's like, well, the video game is basically like multiple seasons of a TV show, and you're just gonna give that to me again with Pedro Pascal and stuff, which sounds great, but it's just like, what is this? What else? Like, what are you showing me that's different?
I don't think it'll work as well in a different medium. Like, I won't spoil it, but one of the brilliant things about The Last of Us, the first one, was you are forced to do things near the end of the game that are really hard and that you wouldn't necessarily want to do.
Yeah.
And it messes with player agency where you're like, wow, I'm doing this horrible thing, but it makes sense from a character perspective and I need to see this through. Yeah. And you don't get that in a TV show because you're so disconnected from it. So I don't know. I think it'll lose something in translation.
Like, I'm, as a big fan, and I completely agree. As a big fan, I'm going to give it its due and I'll give it a chance. And I probably, because I'm a weirdo, will watch it all. But I don't love that. I mean, like you said, I think I'd rather the creators put their energy towards something else. And that's how I feel about, or I did feel about the live action Avatar. But now I'm just like, just scrap it. Don't do it.
Yeah. Like, I want to see new stuff.
Yeah. I like this thing, this dedicated studio of the Avatar universe.
Yeah.
Shit. Yeah. That sounds awesome. There's so many avatars out there. Go explore their stories.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally.
The last story I have for you today, before we get into our movie of the week, a huge deal. And I know how much of a big Pokemon fan you are. I actually don't know if that's true, but let's talk about it.
Oh, man. Digital monsters, baby.
You're a Digimon guy.
I don't know. I don't know.
Jesse, someone, and it sounds like you're not a big Pokemon guy, but we're going to talk about it anyways. And they just released, or the big news is Pokemon Snap is coming back. You must have played that game when you were a kid.
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now there's an esports tournament I would probably not go to.
Yeah, that would be very boring. I guess it'd be like kind of relaxing, I guess.
It's like, well, this player's Magikarp was more in frame. So we'll advance him to the next round.
The commentary would be awful.
Yeah.
Look at how he pans that camera with precision.
Not Niles. Look at how he photographed that Gyarados, Niles. It's me, Fraser. I'm doing commentary.
So there's news on Pokemon Snap. There's news on Pokemon Diamond and Pearl remake, which I've never played personally. Did you play any of the... Like, what was the last Pokemon game you even played? You played Diamond and Pearl?
Yeah, I did. I think it might have been the last one. I'm a Pokemon fan, and then I enjoyed like the handheld games, but that's sort of where it stops. Like, I haven't really seen any movies or shows.
And that's fine. It's all about video games as the news that came out. Would you be excited about replaying Diamond and Pearl, or is it like, I had my time, it was really great, but I don't need to play it again?
I mean, I did hear about, this is really cool. Soldier Boy is releasing Soldier Pearl
Okay.
version for
Very
his
good.
console.
Ugh.
Yeah.
And it's a bad emulation of Pokemon Pearl, and all
I
of the
actually
Pokemon are just Soldier Boys.
this is funny. This is a true story. All the Pokemon are just Soldier Boy from different music videos. I had a pirated copy called Pokemon Jade when I was like in elementary school that
Oh
my
my God.
Russian friend loaned to me, and it was all in Russian, and it had the deer from Princess Mononoke on it on the cover.
This is real. This is a true story.
Yes, this happened to me.
Oh my God.
And so it's just the Princess Mononoke deer, Pokemon Jade, and I played the heck out of it. Except it couldn't save your data. So I remember I played 3 hours straight, and I like got to the third gym or whatever, and then I was like, I'm done. And then I went back the next day, and it's like, input your character name again, and I was like, no, no.
Oh, that sounds. Oh wow.
Anyways.
Jade, Pokemon Jade.
Pokemon Jade, baby.
That's so funny. It has the Princess Mononoke. Like, that's such a weird not Pokemon. So,
Yeah, I know. Don't get my hopes up.
Creepy looking thing too.
Very creepy.
Yeah. The last Pokemon news that came out, and I'm curious of your opinion as a big Pokemon fan.
Oh, huge fan.
Huge. But there's something called Pokemon Legends, which the best way to describe it is it looks like Breath of the Wild, but Pokemon. So an open world Pokemon game. You're exploring, you're catching Pokemon in the wild. It doesn't look like you go into like the in like a, one-on-one battle or two-on-two battle or whatever, like how all of the Pokemon games are. It's just much more open. I assume you didn't see the trailer to this thing.
I actually did watch this.
You did? Okay.
Because I have some friends that are really into Pokemon, and they were like, you got to watch this.
And?
This is the Pokemon game that every kid wanted from like, elementary school onwards. Like, this is the game. Like, you run around in an open world. There's just Pokemon around, and you just get to explore and catch Pokemon.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I love Breath of the Wild, so any ripoff, I'm also in for
by Nintendo. So yeah,
yeah. I gotta be honest, there were some frame rate issues, and I'm not a huge graphical snob, but they were pretty evident.
Yes. I would also say I'm also not a graphical snob or frame rate snob, but like, I mean, Pokemon Sword and Shield had a huge a lot of people bashing that game because they're like, what is up with these textures? Why do they look like shit? Like you're running it like Breath of the Wild's beautiful. You're running on the same console. Why does this and they had it in this trailer, and usually the trailer version of video games looks way better than what actually comes out. And I'm like, dude, like some of these Pokemons in this trailer are running at like 5 frames a second. Yeah. And if you look at like the mountain, it's just like, it's so muddy and there's no detail to it. I'm skeptical.
You know how they have like that little disclaimer at the bottom of trailers where it's like not actual gameplay footage?
Yeah.
And usually you're like, oh man, that looks so good. I wish that was actual gameplay footage. In this instance, it was like a relief. It was like, oh, good. Okay. So this is not the game.
You got time to work on this thing because you need to.
I'm so glad this is not actual footage because yikes.
Yeah. I love the idea in concept. I am just skeptical of those things. I think like if it comes out running like that, then I will probably disdain the game and like not want to play it.
Yeah, it definitely, watching the trailer, felt like the upper management was like, we just got to put this out. And the people, the programmers or designers were probably like, it's not ready, please don't. And then the bosses were like, nah, it's got Pokemon in the title. People are going to love it.
They're going to freak out. And they did. Like people did freak out. And then, I'm medium excitement. I hope it works out because it could be really exciting. I was personally really ready for Pokemon Sword and Shield when it came out. And then I played it and I had my fill. I was like, you know what? Like I had a lot of fun. I can't name you a single Pokemon in that game anymore. It like came and went. And like towards the end of that game, I'm like, I'm good. I'm good on this formula. Like it's kind of old school and it hasn't aged entirely that well in my mind.
Definitely. Like the old games are like really linear and they're pretty repetitive. So it's cooler going in a different direction. I think great concept for this new one, but we'll see about the execution.
Would it kill them to like make an actual good story in Pokemon? Like to me, it's like such an easy home run to like hire someone from Disney or Pixar and come up with like an actual good story of all these amazing creatures.
Right.
Why is it so hard? Like I don't
think
know.
part of it is like the inherent premise, if you like think about it for more than a minute, is like pretty problematic. And so like any attempt, you know what I mean? Like any attempt to like do a serious story or like really dig into it, it gets really uncomfortable.
I guess so. Like you're kind of taking these
like,
creatures against their will to fight.
You're kidnapping creatures and then making them fight each other.
Yeah,
that's earn true. Badges.
It's just like, earn badges from people who constantly. You're like, why are you a gym leader? Like you lose to like 10-year-old kids constantly.
Like, wow, you only enslaved fire Pokemon? Like there's something wrong with you. Like you've got a problem.
How are you a gym leader and you have like 2 Pokemon and they're both Zubats? Like what?
Yeah. I'm a literal 9-year-old kid and I could beat you. Like,
yeah, it doesn't make sense. All right. That's fair enough. Actually, I do want to talk about and I know we should get to our movie, but this is movie related. Totally. Real quick story here. Tom Holland, everyone's favorite Spider-Man, everyone's favorite guy from Cherry, that movie that's coming out that I've never seen.
Everyone's favorite guy whose last name is a country.
I thought this was interesting, and I think I'm just going to read it here. He already immediately he's doing the Uncharted movie. He's gonna be Nathan Drake.
He's such a baby.
He is a baby. His picture looks good though. He's a young Nathan Drake, of course. And there is an article on IGN that says Tom Holland says the way he approached the performance was a mistake. And it's like, oh man, this movie is not out yet. And it's interesting because the way I'm going to paraphrase this, but he essentially said, like the way he approached the movie this time was instead of getting into the mind of the character, he felt like sometimes he would just focus on looking good for the shot, where he said like, this is my cool moment. I had to play like a really tough guy. I'm going to like jump out of this whatever and land and like really just flex for the camera. And he was talking about how like he wouldn't want to act that way again, which is of course you don't want to. Like you want to be in the character as a professional actor and stuff. I think they're like at one point I'm like, man, the movie studios must hate him for saying that because the movie's not out yet. And then on the other hand, I'm like, I really do like, I know he's a really popular actor, but like coming from a popular actor to be so candid about your performance, I think there's something interesting about that, because when you like a lot of like actors, when they talk about the movies they're in, they're always like, oh yeah, this is the best script I've ever read, and then it's dog shit. Like for him, he's just really open about it, and I like that.
I agree. I like that honesty of like the movie's not even out yet, and he's like, guys, I messed up. Not my best work.
Yeah,
gotta admit.
And he can afford it because like it's like, well, he did the work. Like whatever, like he's one of the biggest movie actors right now, so it's not like, I mean, he controls it all, I guess. Like the Hollywood execs is under his thumb, really.
I guess so. I guess he's got enough cachet that he can say that. It's funny. It would be like if Stanley Kubrick before, like after 2001 was done, but before it came out was like, hey guys, just want to say this ended up being a lot more confusing than I thought. It doesn't make a lot of sense. There's a lot of colors at the end. We should just cut that down. The apes and the monolith, honestly, I'm not even sure what that was. Anyways, kind of a turd, but it's coming out.
But here it is. I like that. I truly do. I think there's like a lot of dishonesty in the Hollywood scene, whatever you want to call it, in just movies in general. And I think there is something really cool about someone just being spoken honestly about how they feel about their performance.
Absolutely. It's so refreshing because like all the press junkets are like the same softball questions where it's like, yeah, it was really fun to get into character. Oh yeah. Like, oh, the director is like really actually down to earth and he's actually really funny. And it's just like the same stuff over and over again.
It's so
boring,
to
have like Ben Affleck going like, Batman, he killed a lot of people, and I think that was a mistake, and I really think we should return him more of his non-lethal.
Yeah.
Anyways, enjoy the movie.
Yeah. I hate thinking about Snyder Batman so much. I hate it.
Sorry to bring that up.
That's okay. That's okay. But you know what? Let's talk about the true Snyder cut of of this week. No, that's not related whatsoever. Jesse, you chose the movie of the week. Do you want to introduce it to the people and why you chose it?
Yes. So I chose this movie based on how I think a lot of people decide to watch a movie. It was recommended to me by my barber while he was cutting my hair. This is true.
Wow.
And we were talking about movies, and I was talking about, like, I'm a big Bong Joon-ho guy, so I was like, I love Snowpiercer. I like the class themes. I like the action. And he's like, well, he's cutting my hair. He's like, you want a number 2 or number 3? I was like, number 2 on the sides. You got to watch The Platform. No creo que sobreviva usted mucho tiempo. And I was like, what's this? And he basically described it as like vertical Snowpiercer, which
it kind of is.
But imagine bleaker than Snowpiercer,
which is kind of crazy to think about because Snowpiercer is pretty fucking bleak.
So it's called The Platform. It's on Netflix. It's like a horror sci-fi thriller.
Yep.
And do you want me to like describe the plot?
Sure,
like, how do we usually do this?
Yeah.
Well, I'll talk about the premise.
Yeah.
The premise is there is a tall vertical prison with just floors and floors and floors. There's 2 people on each floor, and every day there's a platform full of food that starts going down from floor 0 at the very top and stops for 2 minutes at each floor. And so everyone has 2 minutes on their floor to eat the food. Naturally, as the platform gets lower and lower, there's less and less food until the people at the bottom are getting nothing.
Yeah.
And so it's about a guy who wakes up and has to figure out what's going on and how to survive this place.
Mm-hmm. Oh man, I don't even know where to begin with this movie. I'm first of all, I'm really happy that I watched it. I think, like, overall, if we're going to talk about just general feelings, I did enjoy the film. I think I think there are parts that are a little bit muddled, I guess, and like I'm like, I don't know if like these parts work for me. It's a short film too, like it's an hour and a half. I'm just like, you have a point, and I feel like there are parts in the movie that they're like kind of dancing around the point. And I'm like, well, you already kind of said it, so you don't have to dance around it. It's really hard to describe in that way. But like, I think overall, like the themes that they were going for were good. And like we were talking about Bong Joon-ho and stuff. And I think in recent years, in the last decade or so, class movies have become its own like subgenre of movies, which is really interesting to think about, especially with Parasite being like the class movie now, or something that talks about class in an expert way. And I was like, am I able to, what else can you add to this conversation of class? And this one was interesting because it's all about class for sure, but it's also about like food as well, like hoarding food and like taking what you need. And then the big part of this movie is like, yes, they're on a floor, but every month they get gassed and then they wake up on another floor. So they can go from
terrifying.
They can go from like the best floor where they're eating everything all the time to the very bottom, like, and it's like you're not getting anything from there, right?
No, it's just the platform descends and it's just like broken dishes and like, that's it.
Yeah. Ugh. It seems very wasteful.
You're picking up on one of the themes there, Tom.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Like, parts of it were a little obtuse and muddled, and other parts were like incredibly obvious and like heavy-handed.
Yeah. Did you enjoy the film though, Jesse? Like, overall, would you say?
Yeah, I really liked it. I think it's going to stick with me for a long time. There's just a ton of imagery, and just the concept is so visceral and disturbing.
Yeah.
Like, while I was watching it, so the people, the guy who wakes up, kind of your audience surrogate, he wakes up and he's like on floor like what, 47 or like,
something around there,
which is a decent floor. And he's getting used to it. But then the next time, and I guess we're going to get spoilery here. Yeah. If that's okay. He wakes up on like floor 171 or something.
Yeah.
And then it's just like,
it's fucked up.
Everything, like his cellmate turns on him immediately because he's like, look, we're going to one of us is going to kill the other one eventually. So I'm just going to get the upper hand now.
Yeah.
And his cellmate was incredible. I thought he was my favorite part of the movie.
Yeah.
Just really interesting performance.
Yeah, that's true. It really was. And he's just a little creepy.
So creepy.
Not a little. He was really creepy, but also like he also gave you the information you needed for making this movie go. And even like spoilers here, he does die fairly early on, but he persists like through the movie as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he's kind of playing like a little Hannibal Lecter-y kind of guy. And the interesting part of the movie was just like everybody does horrible things in the movie pretty consistently. But even when they're doing that, you're kind of like, they have no choice. Like they literally have no, because they, the hunger is gonna, if they're in the lower levels, the hunger is gonna drive them to do like inhumane things no matter what. Like you basically lose agency at that point because you're so hungry and you need to eat. So it weirdly kind of justified a lot. I don't know, not totally, but you can sort of understand.
You can totally understand, of why someone would be driven to do a thing like when being pushed. It just like for me, like I right away, I'm like, this is a ill-conceived prison system right off the top. Like,
I mean, if depends on what the goal of the prison system is, right? And that was sort of the question. It's one of the questions of the film is like, what is the purpose of this?
Yeah, that's the thing that I'm like, I don't entirely understand. Like, it sounds like you have this administration who is in charge of this prison system. And then you have, like, if you stay X amount of time in the prison system, you get a diploma, accredited diploma. And I'm like, what does that mean? I guess, like, is that because like we have the main character and a few other people in the movie who come here voluntarily, which I'm like, that is
wild,
terrible idea. Why'd you do that?
Yeah, the one guy says, it was either the hole, which is what they call the vertical prison, or like a psychiatric ward, and it's like, buddy,
like
wrong choice, man.
But like the main character, he's like doing an interview to like he wants to be part of this. Yeah. And like I didn't really understand the motivation of why he wanted to be in there. I just know that he wanted to be in there. Right?
Yeah, it seems like there like are two ways you go to the hole. Like you volunteer, and it seemed like it was in exchange for something. So like maybe a diploma, I think, or just maybe something else. Like you do your time and then you get a perk in the outside world.
Sure.
Or you commit a crime and you're sentenced there, like in our world when you go to prison.
Right.
And so to me, it was like, that was almost one of the more chilling things was like, how bad is it outside the prison? Yeah. Like if people are willing to go for 6 months for a diploma, like how hard is it outside where this is a choice? And so that to me was like one of the more chilling parts of the film of like, wow, I don't even know what the outside world is like if people are willing to go here.
Yeah. Like, was it only 6 months? Do you know? Like it was
our main character. Yeah. Georgi. I think that was his name. Yeah. He was said, I'm here for 6 months. Every month he swaps floors. Yeah. And then I'll get out with my honorary diploma. And everyone's making fun of him because you're allowed to bring one item with you, and he chooses a book.
Don Quixote, yeah.
Yeah.
And you can literally bring anything with you. They were saying like, well, someone brought a dog, someone brought an exercise bike, which is like, that's fun.
My favorite is when the platform's going down, and you just see this guy with a surfboard in the corner, which is just like so funny.
Why'd you bring that? I like the one where someone brought money. I thought that was really on the nose.
Oh yeah, but that was fun. And he's like near the bottom, and he's just like sitting starving, but he's holding all this cash,
which does nothing in this prison.
Exactly.
Yeah, I guess like the whole movie, there's some intentional ambiguity. I think it would have been really nice to give in context of like, why does this place exist? And I think, I don't know, like the whole movie is just this whole vertical prison system. Mm-hmm. And I can't tell
with the exception of they do cut away to the massive kitchen where they are preparing all this decadent food.
But I just assumed that was part of that like whole facility.
Right.
Sure. Like I'd like to see what's outside of it. I'm not sure. Like I just need and or maybe just a little bit more context,
Sure.
just a bit, because otherwise, like the concept of this platform that's like it's all about food and it's coming down, and I just every time I looked at that food, I was just like, it just. And I think this is intentional. It's just like it started off so good, and then
Yeah.
it gets so fucking gross. And I sent you a picture yesterday, Jesse, where I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm eating breakfast and watching this movie, which I had no idea what it was about. And then I had to stop eating breakfast, and I'm like, or stop the movie. I'm like, I'm gonna finish breakfast and come back to this
Yeah,
movie.
man, I got to give the rest of my breakfast to my downstairs neighbors.
Yeah, I was just like, oh my God. Because every time they're eating food and then the platform goes down, and they're just like scrounging for a couple more bites.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so disgusting. Like, and I think that's part of it is like the movie's teaching you to see excess as like this disgusting, wasteful thing. Because like there are chocolate cakes, there are escargot, there's just like these like incredibly rich, fancy, non-nutritious foods.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like, yeah, it just becomes a symbol of wealth that you just hate by the end. You're like, man, this sucks.
Yeah. And like the thing that we didn't mention was like if they tried to take some of that food and save it for later, the room gets either super hot or super cold.
Yep.
And I'm like, well, shit, like this again, this prison system sucks. Like I hate it. Yeah,
totally. I mean, this is not a fun place to be.
No, and like
I think one of the
go ahead.
Sorry, you get kind of different. So every time your cellmate dies or gets released,
right?
We never see anyone get released in the movie, by the way.
No.
Yeah. The person gets a new cellmate, and so our main guy gets to live with, I think it's like 3 different cellmates, and they all have like different like world views and things on the prison. And the second person is like a bureaucrat who worked for the administration.
Yeah.
And so she thinks it's fine. Well, she doesn't think it's fine, but she thinks it's like all above board and like we have to do this and it's just part of the system.
Yeah.
And so it's interesting to see her sort of like at one point she's like, yeah, you know, there's 200 floors and there's no minors. Nobody under 16 is here. So like it's not that bad.
Yeah.
But then spoilers, the movie reveals that both of those things are not true.
Yep.
And when she wakes up on a floor below floor 200, her entire worldview is shattered and her only choice is she kills herself.
Right. Well, that's part also that she lost her dog as well, right? Like she brought a dog. That is such a bad idea.
I know. As soon as you see the dog,
you're like, why?
And it's a wiener dog. You're just like,
that's
okay. How long is this gonna make it?
Like, I would hate to bring my dog to I would not. I would release my dog to the wild before I brought my dog to this prison system. It's like, oh my God.
I think it kind of spoke to her like naivete or just like trying to normalize everything. Like, yeah, I'm going to bring my dog in here and it's just going to be like it was on the outside, but in this other place. And then she's proven wrong like so quickly.
Yeah. We also get another character in the movie, which is like, which I don't like the stereotype and then we talked about this before on Talking Tongue about like let's just say Asian character, usually a female who is deadly, but always silent, never speaks a word. And that's what we got in this movie too.
Yes.
Where you're like, okay, well, we have this character, this woman, Asian, doesn't speak a word, and she's just deadly. She's looking for her child, which you're like, oh, there's no child in here, which we already talked about is not true. Yeah. And she goes from floor to floor from wherever she is to like find her child. And if someone tries to fuck her up, she will kill everyone. And she does. She kills a ton of people. This movie gets bloody.
The last half of it is nuts.
Yeah.
Incredible. Yeah. One of the goriest films I've ever seen. Just a heads up if you want to watch it. It gets incredibly gory.
And like you see like her cutting skin and eating it and like trying to bird feed it a little bit.
Yes.
It's just like, whoa, I can't. Don't eat breakfast when you watch this movie.
That's a great point, Tung. I do think that was a little too stereotypical. Absolutely.
Yeah.
That cliche. And in the same way, another character introduced later, Bahamut, I think is his name, is this very strong, powerful black guy who is like hyper religious and believes in God. And that also felt a little too stereotypical as well.
Yeah. Yeah. I
This
mean, like,
kind of like
yeah.
faith driven. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. He wants to get to the top, and if he gets to the top, then he'll be closer to God. And he has this rope with
Yeah.
him, and he tries to
Which is,
climb
I mean, a pretty good thing to bring with you,
for
actually, is a
sure.
bunch of
And then
rope.
like someone takes a shit on his face, and you see that shit come out of
Yep.
someone's ass, and you're like, oh my God. That was a
Yeah.
bit much for
We'll
me.
talk about the whole.
Yeah, that's
Uh,
right. Yeah, and but then they do something that I just love in movies, and I don't know how to perfectly describe it, but the situation is just like the main character and the black character.
yeah.
They're like, you know what? Fuck it. We're gonna break the system. We're
Hell
going to go
yeah.
from floor to floor, and they break off like a steel pipe or whatever from like the bed, and then they're like,
Such an empowering moment, right?
I
Because
love
like the
that
whole
stuff.
time the movie is like he's got no agency. Like
Yeah,
nobody has any real agency. And then finally these two guys are like, you know what? We are going to make sure that everyone gets food as we go down. We're going to hand it off. We're going to ration it.
yeah,
And if we can make sure that food gets to the person on the last level, we will have symbolically beaten the system.
yep.
And it's
Because they
so
have nothing
great.
else to lose, and like it's just like, and once it gets to the bottom, it has to go back up. So that's your way all the way up.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, amazing. That's a really good,
Good way to bring it home there.
yeah. And then it kind of unfolds a really exciting part of the movie where it's just like, oh, well, we can't give food to the first 50 people or 50 floors because otherwise it won't work. So then they just beat the shit out of people.
So it becomes one of those things where you're like, man, I was rooting for these guys, but now the only solution to prevent people from eating more than they should is to beat the crap out of them.
Or kill them, which it sounds like they did kill.
Which they end up. But then you get this great, probably my favorite sequence of the movie, and maybe one of the most harrowing, is you get to watch the platform go all the way to the bottom. And the whole movie, you're just wondering, like, what's it like? How big is this place?
Yeah.
And the movie I thought was really good about challenging your expectations.
Yeah.
Like there's assumptions made constantly. Like at one point, Georg, our main guy, is like, I've timed off the amount of time on each platform. I've waited to see when the platform comes back up. There's 250 floors.
Yep.
And so you're finally like, okay, cool. Now that I know what the parameters of this hell is, it makes me feel a little more oriented.
Right.
Like I know what we're dealing with. But then they figure out that he's estimated wrong and it's way bigger. And that's one of those moments where you're just like, oh God, like,
oh my God. Yeah. And like that is so effective because at like floor, like I forget what it was very early on. It was like 80 or 100, maybe. They are already fucked up. Like they've been like stabbed and they're getting the shit kicked out of them. They're almost like they're dying and stuff.
Yeah.
And then they clear that floor, and then there's like another 200 floors to go, and they're bleeding out. And it's like,
just
holy
like
crap.
The movie does a really good job of just like, I kind of like the obtuseness to a point. Like you just, what's terrifying about it is like, you don't really get, it seems infinite. Like it's just like an abstract place that doesn't make any sense. Yeah. And that is pretty terrifying because like we want to make sense of things. We want to feel like we're in control.
Yeah. I agree with you. I think I was complaining about it earlier. There is a sense that I do like the obtuseness as well. I think there are a few things they can tighten up, but otherwise it's like, it's a very fascinating idea on the subject of class and like just taking what you need. And I love there's a line in there where it's just like the first guy was saying like, oh, well, he basically takes a piss on the people below him.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, we don't talk to the people below us because they're below us. And we don't talk to the people above us because they're above us. And it's like, holy shit. Like you start seeing like the actual levels of class going on right there.
Yeah. And like, can solidarity be built? And in this, and what this film seems to argue is like, in the way this prison is structured, no.
Yeah.
Like the only solidarity we see is between the two cellmates on the same level at the end when they partner up. But otherwise, the only way to coerce people is through force or at one point threatening to shit in their food.
Yeah, that was like, it's like, oh, I guess that's effective. And she's like, I can't believe it. I can't believe that worked. And
that worked.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because this one person's trying to like be nice and like, I've set aside plates for you. Please set aside plates for the floor below. And everyone's always like, screw that. We're not doing that.
Yeah. It's true.
It is a very nihilistic movie. Like it seems to say that like, yeah, like there's you can't help but become a monster by
Yeah.
living in this system. Like you just
Mhm.
can't escape it. Our main character, who's shown to be like kind of thoughtful and gentle at the beginning, he succumbs to his worst impulses just to survive.
Yeah.
And so it's I don't know, and you can think about that in terms of like capitalism too, right? To like,
Mhm.
beat this dead horse, but like, yeah, like, and I think Parasite did this too. It's just like you identify with everybody in the movie to an extent,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
it's really the circumstances and the structures that force people to do horrible things. It's not like some inherent
Yeah.
personal failing. It's just like, oh, but if
Yeah.
I want to survive in this situation, I have to do X, which
Yeah.
means doing violence or so.
Yeah. You know what? Like we already touched on this part, but I agree with everything you're saying is like I think the a very fascinating part of it is because you wake up on different floors and because
Yeah,
you one day can be on the top and you can treat the people at the bottom like shit even though you've been down there, you just
I know
continue
that
the
was
cycle of like well you know what like I'm at the top, this is how I was treated. And that's like I feel like a true thing in real life too, right? Like people who
yes.
like even like if you were grown up and you're poor and all this other stuff and one day like money gets to your head, you even though you live through that stuff you could also treat people poorly and vice versa as well, right? Like it's very
Absolutely.
interesting.
That's a great point. And that's one of those things that makes the movie kind of bleak is this like you would think hypothetically if you're like an optimist that would build solidarity because you empathize with the people below you and above you because you've been there. But
Mhm.
instead, it's just this cycle of violence where you get shat on and you can't wait for your turn to
Yeah.
literally or figuratively shit on the people below you. Like
Yeah. So
and yeah,
interesting.
you
Yeah.
do see that in real life. You see that like with I don't know, people escaping a difficult situation in a country, coming to a new country, and there's a lot of discrimination from them on other people, and that's just one example. But
No, yeah, for sure.
yeah,
And I was just thinking like there was something that was mentioned which was like if you were at the top, and this happened a few times, when you're at the very top, you have so much time to think for yourself. Even though you're getting
yeah,
fed really well, there's several times when someone's just offing themselves,
yeah.
jumping down
They jump down the infinite hole,
because
and
they're
you see
like
their body just fall.
basically getting everything they want in life,
Yeah,
quote unquote, in this case all the food that they want, and
yeah,
they're saying there's no other reason to live. So it's so like
sure.
at the very bottom you can have that same like thought process as the person at the top. So like no matter where you are, which like you're kind of screwed, which is why the first character is like, if you're in the middle, baby, that's where you want to be. You want
Yeah,
to like look
exactly.
forward to getting to the top, but you don't actually want to be there, and you definitely don't want to be in the bottom.
I know, I know. It's
Yeah.
oh man. And just
Yeah.
like, yeah, you have to when you're at the top, you have to like live with what you've done, and you still are implicit in this system.
Yeah.
And so it's haunting. Like, man, there's so much good cinematography in this. Like, there's so many great
Mhm.
sequences. Though the one that really stood out to me is just near the end when they're going down. Our two main cellmates are going down the platform, and they get to like the sub 200s, and it's just you're every floor you're just like so stressed out because you're like, I don't know what I'm going to see, how have these people reacted on this floor.
Yeah.
And it's just like
So bloody.
someone is like sliced in half at one point, someone is cannibalizing another person.
Oh.
And it's just every floor you're just like getting worse and worse and worse, and I just thought it was really well done. Like you're just like
Two people are taking a bath together.
yeah,
That
they
was like
toss them like a watermelon slice and then they start
a
like wrestling for it.
yeah, it's like what?
There
That's
are some moments of humor for sure.
very few, but yes, there is a sum.
Ugh.
We should mention like a couple more points, and we'll wrap it up here. Is this is a we haven't said this yet. This is a Spanish film. This is all in
Yes.
Spanish, which was like I didn't know that off the top, and I thought that was like I haven't watched too many, I guess, foreign films in a while,
Mhm.
and I love foreign films because they give you a I think they just give you a different perspective. It's just like how does this person from Spain, like Spanish director, how does he interpret class? Because class is
Mhm.
something that's worldwide, but like they just interpret it as slightly different than a Western view, right?
Totally.
And that's why we like Parasite so much, because like you see that and you're like, oh, that's so interesting. Like the similarity is going on here, and
the
same
themes are
going on here.
universal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I just liked it. I just love that, I guess.
Totally. And like you have to wonder if a Canadian or an American director would make a movie so on the nose and like hitting you over the head with like hierarchical resource hoarding is bad, like systems that don't
they'd fuck
deliver
it up,
resources equitably make everyone worse.
Yeah, I think they'd fuck it up, because they would put Tom Holland would say he did a bad performance.
Man, I just really wanted to look good as this like cannibal guy, and I just was so concerned with looking hot.
Yeah. And I know that's not what you were going for, but I just couldn't get out of my head. Yeah. I'm just so hot.
Anyways, the Soulja Boy game tie-in, the platform. It's a platformer, obviously.
Yeah. The last thing I want to bring up about this movie, and maybe you have another point, but the last thing I want to bring up is the very end of the movie. They don't give you closure.
Yeah. I loved that. I hated it and I loved it at the same time.
Which you basically have... The kid is now the symbol that's supposed to break the system. The whole point of going down with that whole fight was like, if we preserve like the best food, the most like, not the best food, but the most like, I guess, rich food, the tasty food.
Right,
and bring that all the way to the bottom, and then have that be the thing that brings it all to the top. We can basically say, fuck you, your system's dumb. Yeah. And that food gets eaten at the end, but it's just like, no, it doesn't matter. It's the kid at the very bottom level. She's the message. And this part's a little weird, but like, it's just like, oh, well, we don't need you, main character. Get off the platform, because it like, whatever, it doesn't work as well if you're on this. Yeah. And then the kid goes on and just blasts off at stupid speeds. And I'm like, oh my God, that kid's going to die when they get
going to hit the ceiling.
Yeah. I'm just like, how do you expect this kid who's like on this dining table, not strapped in to like survive being like bulleted 333 floors?
I buy everything else about this movie, but that kid surviving that platform. No. I think, to your point, like, I think the whole time the characters are getting beat up going down the platform, like, you're like, there's no way they can survive these injuries. They're too bad. I took the ending to be symbolic of like, he died. He died, and his body is still on the platform. And this is his like conscience or his memories sort of coaxing him into the darkness. Like, oh,
I see.
That was my interpretation. Like, he died of his injuries. Like, he's so beat up.
Yeah.
But there's that glimmer of hope of like, yeah, if we can just send a message to the people at level 0 who make and deliver the food, the powers that be won't be changed, but maybe the people that work for them in the kitchen. And we see, and maybe this is why we see glimpses of them sort of like being abused and yelled at by the head chef, is so that we get a sense of like, oh, there maybe are some sympathetic people who don't like this.
Yeah.
Maybe we can change them, and then they can screw it over. But like, we don't see that. We don't know.
We don't. And then they're like, you know what? This message makes sense. We're going to make a diagonal prison system. You're right.
Exactly. We just need to change the physical structure of the system.
Easy peasy. We solved everything. Jesse, what a wonderful discussion about this movie. I think I enjoyed it more just because I got to talk about it with somebody.
It feels like you want to talk about it.
It's a talk about movie, right? And I think we talked about some really interesting stuff. If you had to rate this movie, what would you give it?
What is our ranking system? I like the idea of out of 333 floors.
Yeah, out of 333 floors, what would you rate? What floor would this movie be on?
Man.
And how much food would be left over on that floor?
Wow, this is complicated.
Yeah.
That's a good question. And then I've got another question for you after this question.
Okay.
I really liked it. I thought it was like, I liked the obviousness. I liked the inventiveness. I liked the ambiguity. So I would give it like an 8.5 out of 10. So like out of 333, like with 0 being good, because that's where the food is,
Yeah.
and 333 being bad,
Yep.
I would probably give it like in the 50s
In the 50s.
or like 40s. I quite liked it.
Okay. Wow. That's really good. Yeah, I would give it let's see. 10 escargots over 3 angry chefs.
Absolutely. A very good rating system.
I also did like it. I know I was being a little ambiguous with that.
Yeah.
I did like it. I think there's like some parts that like made me very queasy. That's intentional.
This is trigger warning for a lot of things in this film. This is gross.
And I think like some imagery, like you said before, is like, okay, I get it. Like it's you've beaten this horse a few times, especially when there's like,
not to eat a dead horse.
Yeah, eat the dead horse. Like there's like you got your dead first cellmate, and then you do like a cross dissolve to your second dead cellmate, and they do that more than once. I get it.
You like this technique. I got you.
Yeah. What was the question you wanted to ask me, Jesse?
Where do you think you exist in real life? Which floor do you think you occupy?
Oh my God. I would be middle class, middle floor stuff, I think. So pretty middle. I'm definitely not top. That's for goddamn sure. But I own a horse. I own a house.
I own a horse.
I own a horse. That's what I brought.
Don't beat it. Don't worry.
Yeah, don't worry. Terrible thing to bring. Even worse than bringing.
If you own a horse, I'm sorry, you're in the top 10 floors. If you own a horse,
I don't know. 333 floors though. That's a floor 100 and something probably.
Okay.
I guess it's a hard question. It's a hard question.
Yeah.
Because even those people didn't know how many floors there was until like that actually happened, right? So like, too many. I'm like depressed thinking about it.
I know.
Jesse, thank you so much for joining me on today's Talking Tongue. Running a little bit late today, but you know what? With this movie, there was a lot of like juicy things to talk about, and I think we did that. So.
You could say there's a lot of levels to this movie. We have fun here.
We have fun. Jesse, do you have anything to plug for the people at home?
Yes, I mentioned D&D earlier. I've just started releasing an episode with my improv buddies. Or episodes of the show. The show is called What We Do in the Basement, which is another good title for the platform, actually, now that I think about it. And it is an actual play Dungeons and Dragons podcast. It's very funny. We goof around a lot, and I love improvising with my friends. Yeah. And so you can find it at What We Do in the Basement on any sort of podcast app that you have. We have 2 episodes out. We'll release another one next week and another one the week after, and then we're going to bi-monthly releases.
Fantastic. Check it out, everyone. I think if you liked hearing Jesse's take on platforms today and levels, well, watch the levels of his performance in his D&D podcast. Watch out, everyone.
And I've got big news too. The platform is being reimagined as a game show for Paramount Plus.
Oh no. Oh, wow. Okay. Well, I definitely not bringing my horse, I guess, to that game show.
That should not be the one thing you bring.
No, definitely not. Thanks, Jesse. You'll see Jesse again in the pod cavern lurking around. I am sure of it. Probably be back on another top 5 episode, top 5 levels. That's a terrible
top 5. Probably the 5. Probably the top 5.
Probably the 5. Yeah. Everything else seems pretty
I'm not a big fan of the under 150.
Yeah, even 50 and below sound terrible. Anyways, you can find the rest of the shows in the Pod Cavern at www.podcavern.com. That's it for today's episode. We'll see you again next week on another episode of Talking Tongue. But before we go, Jesse has a famous catchphrase.
Don't eat the parfait.
Bye, everyone.
Bye. Thank you, Tongue.